Hello, everybody. It is 9:50 p.m. Central Time on the 13th of June, 2021, Sunday night here in the United States. First of all, before we get going, we are live on Twitch right now. I'm recording, and we're going to put that over on YouTube, but want to make sure we sound okay before we get going. Chat room, press 1 on Twitch if we sound okay. I've got a Windows update. You know what that means. All kinds of technical issues when I'm trying to do my live stream. But we've got a Windows update that we need to get in. It just keeps popping up every couple weeks at this point. A little bit annoying. Everybody's telling me it sounds okay. So let's get into it. Let's turn on a display capture. Let me welcome in everybody here who's new. If you're watching on Twitch, again, you're watching live. I do record these from time to time and then upload them over on YouTube so you can watch them back when it's significant. Something big is going on or if something's getting ready to happen. So for the new people, just really quick, let me explain. We're using the USGS and the EMSC, the European agency, to give us a good idea of what's striking. We're looking at 48 hours roughly worth of activity, maybe just a little bit more right now. And we are also looking at deep earthquakes versus shallow earthquakes. The deep earthquakes are raised high off the globe so we can see where they're occurring. And the deep earthquakes matter because there's a hammering action that takes place coming in from the underside of the plate where these deep earthquakes happen. So imagine this across thousands of miles where waves are forming in on themselves in a concentric wave across the curvature of the earth. And it focuses in on itself down in the magma. This is hundreds, if not thousands of miles across. And then it comes in at a very fine point and it can't focus down into the fluid and it's forced back up into a spike or a singularity where the combined force of the entire wave is hammered into the underside of the plate. Then, as that hammering action takes place, we get into a situation like this tank here, where this tank is filled with water, but I want you to think of this like the plate boundaries, this tank, like the plate boundaries on the USGS map here where the red lines are. Going around the planet, that each one of these red lines is like a tank that contains the wave. And that hammering action takes place from the deep quakes that I just showed you. And the more you hammer in, the more it pumps energy into the tank. And then it spreads out. And as it spreads, it drops off the same sized earthquakes all the way along the way throughout the tank. And the more you pump it full of energy, the bigger the magnitudes, the bigger the amplitude of the wave. So we then get spreads of the same sized earthquakes going out across vast distances, just like that wave in a tank. And let me show you the fives, for instance, going across the West Pacific. Here's 4.9 and greater, or 4.8 and greater. So imagine this is the tank, and we have that wave, which all about the same size, 4.8 to 4.9 on one end, 5.0, 5.1, 5.0. And then on the other end, look all the way over here, 4.8 to 4.9, and another 4.8 to 4.9. So like bookends, or two ends of the wave tank, about the same size, starting with fives, and then in between fives, just a hair of a point off. Now look where they combine. Imagine the wave tank going up and out and spreading up to the west and up to the east. So far the wave has spread up this far. The combined total of all these has gone up here and struck with a 5.2 to 5.3 and another 4.9. We can add those together. So let's get back to the wave here. So the wave going through the tank. First we get our hammering action coming in from the underside of the plate with our deep quakes. But it's not a fluid wave. We're talking about very low frequency that plays into this. Some kind of VLF that focuses in on the underside of the plate. Then that gets me into the update here. Our deep earthquakes that are raised high off the globe. We have to pay attention to these. These are the main pushers for the whole planet wherever we get our sets of deep quakes. Over the past several days, 72 hours in particular, you can see we have one here in South America, a whole cluster of them here at Fiji, another cluster of them over here at Indonesia, another set over here in the Middle East at North Afghanistan, and then a single deep earthquake that you don't see on the feed here right now. The Europeans reported it. USGS ignored it. Deep 2.7 down below this. This is the Tyrrhenian Sea here, south of Italy, north of Mount Etna. So a deep quake there yesterday. In other words, we had deep quakes in the past 72 hours from here in South America, spread across here pretty much in the middle of it all, and then going out the opposite direction all the way over to Europe. 3/4 of the planet, deep earthquakes within a day. So let's go back to this one more time. These happening multiple places in the course of a day down below the plates. Now let's show you where they are and show you what's at each spot. Zooming in really close, you'll see a letter D. This is for the new people. Letter D stands for deep earthquakes. And it's a forecast point. The letter Ds have been on there for years at this point. I think 8 years is how long I've had the Ds on the map. And that's where our deep earthquakes are happening. We forecast for those points because these are regular spots that get hit. The reason they get hit is because of the hammering action. But why? I'm still trying to get to the bottom of why it's happening down below these spots. But you can see them in the past 72 hours here centered across Fiji. Then we go to the west, over to Indonesia, like I said. Now let's go look at the USGS map. The red lines. Deep earthquakes from Fiji all the way down towards New Zealand, all along this portion of the plate boundary. Another set of deep quakes over here in Indonesia, right where all the plate boundaries break apart and flow to the west, to the north. Another set of deep quakes over here at the plate boundary, in between Afghanistan and India. And one more deep earthquake over here at Italy, which you didn't see on the USGS feed. You just had to go see directly from the Europeans. So all these deep quakes have one thing in common. They're on the plate boundaries, and they're connected to one another, and they all happen in succession from each other. So from here to here to here to here, deep quakes confirmed in 48 hours' time, 2 days. Something's moving below the whole Indo-Australian plate, bordering up, going over to Europe. All of this. Then we jump over across the plate, and right in the middle, over here at the Argentina-Bolivia border, is where our other deep earthquake occurred. Let me show you here. And we will zoom in where we have our letter D. Right there, and the deep quake is quite literally on the southeast side of the letter D. So why do we have a letter D there? Well, it's in the middle. Do you see how it's in the middle of this pretty smooth line of a plate boundary across South America? But I would call that the rough halfway middle point of the whole plate on the eastern side of it. Sometimes when the push is great enough, coming from over here, coming up from down below, it spreads all the way over to South America, guys. It doesn't just go this way over to Europe, it goes over the opposite direction, over towards South America. And then to top it all off, we have not seen this happen yet, but we're looking for 2 new sets of deep quakes. One to happen here, south of Japan, and one to happen here, up in the Sea of Okhotsk, next to Kamchatka, Russia. That's the only 2 spots left to be filled in with deep quakes for the whole planet to be experiencing a deep earthquake event. Hence my update tonight. And that is a big, long opening to let everybody know that when we have a lot of deep earthquakes like this, spread out across 3/4 of the planet in the course of a day or two, that is the sign of a coming series of larger earthquakes. Not just one, usually, it's usually multiples. And they usually happen between where our sets of deep earthquakes happen. Not just anywhere in between. We find what we call, again, we get back to this wave tank thing, which is the halfway point, or what we call the fulcrum point, the middle point between the sets of waves. And I can just park my mouse over the crest of one wave, and you'll see the valley or the trough of the previous wave or the next wave fill it in perfectly at the halfway point. And that's no coincidence. The halfway points, these fulcrum points, are just points where the waves break. And as I'm talking right now, a new 5.2 to 5.4 earthquake has struck on the plate boundary at the Gulf of Aden, which is going to be pumping energy 2 directions. You see, look at it this way, this new earthquake right here. There's a perfect example. I'm going to be getting into this in a second, but this new earthquake over here that just struck will be going up into Europe and down into Africa. But getting back to this, these deep earthquakes hammering in are dropping off 5s all the way over, I just showed it to you, all the way over to here, 4.9, and all the way over to here, 5.1. Let me show you where they are on the USGS map. All the way over here to Myanmar, which, by the way, you can check Myanmar off the list of the warned areas that we had warned. Myanmar has now been hit, 4.9, and then the other 4 point whatever to 5 striking over here. Oh, I'm sorry, down here. Let me zoom in on it. The middle of the Indian Ocean. And then now the new earthquake has just struck up here. So the flow, though, I want to talk about the flow. Going out and across, over, and out and across directly. You notice the USGS has nothing going across here. But I really wonder why. Let me show you what's really there. Do you see this giant north and south facing ridge here that we have an arrow going along? This is the center of the boundary between the Indo and Australian plate. Two 8.4 earthquakes, or 8.4 and 8.5, struck here in 2012. Didn't make any tsunami activity. It was lateral shifting, side-by-side shifting, no up and down movement, and so it didn't produce tsunamis. But, I wonder what was moving side by side. You see it. It goes all the way down to the south, but wait. Look over to the west. Do you see our giant red arrow? Now, this looks like a parentheses shape, and going to the south side, we have Piton de la Fournaise volcano, and then over to the west, we have Madagascar, of course, and Mayotte Island, which is right in the middle of the arrow here, which is a volcano that hadn't erupted in almost 3,000 years, and it came back to life a year and a half ago, by the way. But the flow that comes across when a big push like this is happening. People were asking me last week about Africa. Over here, oh, here's the new earthquake marked on the USGS site. But over here at the Democratic Republic of Congo, going over right to Nyiragongo volcano, and they were asking, is there going to be new activity there? And I don't forecast volcanic eruptions, but I told them, if there's new deep earthquakes, we will see a spread come your way. And now there it is. Now previously it got hit just a few days back. You see that 5 that's marked in pink. That was from the previous push at the start of the week, which is this 4.5 to 5 that came rolling in, marked in red. So first the red earthquake struck. That prompted me to issue the warning for Africa the first time a couple days ago. It got hit, but now a new push has come across. You can see it marked in white. And it's a little bit bigger, isn't it? A 5.1 and a 5.5 basically, instead of a 4.5. So the push that's coming across now is bigger. And of course it is. All the deep earthquakes behind it are more. So there's more hammering action, which means bigger earthquake activity is going to spread up, out, and away. And that gets us back to the wave tank, which is the same sized earthquakes. Imagine that each one of these is a 4, 4, 4, and a 4. Or a 5, a 5, a 5, and a 5. Or you can get very particular. 5.1, 5.1, 5.1, 5.1, or 4.9, 4.9, 4.9, 4.9. That's how similar these earthquakes can be as the wave spreads out. The wave is what's causing the earthquake. It's not that one earthquake's causing the other. It's that this wave of something else, which I think is VLF of some kind, very low frequency, coming up from the plasma core of the Earth, which emits and vibrates VLF up out of it like a bass drum, basically, just like they do up in the upper ionosphere with HAARP, but a bigger version of it down in the core of the Earth, and it's hot enough to melt anything. It's a plasma torch. And it reflects, by the way, it reflects any wave back. So if you try to bounce a wave off of it, it looks solid. That's what plasma does. It reflects shock waves and radio waves. But I digress. 5's going across the plate boundary. Let's go over again and take a look. We're going to expect this to flow up into Europe, down into Africa. So get ready now in Africa. Seismic's about to increase back over here next to Nyiragongo volcano where the fracture broke. Previously, where the volcano is. Now look at this triangle of earthquakes. It's a pretty equal distribution, wouldn't you say? If the plate boundary that we're talking about here is the distance, let's say 1,000 miles across, then we're dealing with a wave that's that distance across. That this is the wave tank. And if I'm yelling into the microphone, I'm sorry. I just saw my decibels go up there. But, you know, hey, I get excited. Let me get a drink. It's exciting to me to see a new discovery. That is that some giant standing wave of VLF is spreading out and dropping off earthquakes along the way. And that's the force that causes earthquakes to begin with. And that the middle points between these sets of 5s are going to be hit by new sets of quakes. We can then find the middle points between the sets of quakes and find the next area that's going to get hit. But you have to keep in mind, this is flowing. This is flowing like a river. It's going in a certain direction. It's going out and away from where the push came from. You aren't surprised when you push on something, especially if you're in like a pool of water and you pushed on something and it floated away from you. If you push on anything and it tries to go away from you, you aren't shocked by that. Well, the same thing is happening on a grander scale, much larger scale, and the distribution's the same. When you push on an object, it tries to go, the force spreads out across the object and tries to equalize across the object. Now, if there's breaks or cracks in the object, just ask anybody who works with stone, whether it's thousands of feet thick in a quarry, or whether it's just a few inches thick in your countertop in your house, that if you put cracks or fractures or perforations on the surface of a stone, or even anywhere through it, that if you exert force on that, that's where the force is going to go to first, as a weak point, quote unquote, and then breaks there and then spreads out from there. And the distribution's the same, though. That if you have weak points that are hit, that the spread is still the same. The spread is still the standing wave. You still get the same size wave spreading out across a huge distance. That's what I'm talking about here. Just put it simply, there's a giant low frequency being vibrated up from the core of the Earth. It comes up, and we see it come up and hammer into the underside of the plate. It focuses in on itself because it is on a surface that I guess is curved. Man, I'm watching what I'm saying. You can tell I'm hesitant to talk about it. The curved surface of the Earth. Maybe it's just the curved surface of the underside of the plate. But regardless, it focuses in on itself at certain points, and that's where it hammers in. Then the wave tank principle takes place, and here's our wave tank. Follow the red lines. But the waves get absorbed by the plates as it goes through the tank. The sides of the tank absorb some of the energy, and that gets us into the rest of the earthquakes that are spread out across the plate. So we got 5s coming in. By the way, we can also check off, and this is much more rare, India, which I don't think we actually warned India here. I had warned India right here, but anytime I even mention India and India gets hit at all, a new 4. And by the way, the 4.9 in the middle, think of that as the bigger point of the wave, and on either side we got 4s. But the spread of that, the spacing of that, is across the red line again, right here at the bend. 3 of the same sized earthquakes within a point of each other, or a hair of a point. 4.9 in the middle, 4 point something on one side, 4 point something on the other. But it's inundating the plate. The plate's absorbing it on both sides. It's going to spread, though, and that's what we're seeing here. The pink-colored earthquakes from yesterday have given way to today, and we are right here at the Greece-Albania border region again, but more on Greece's side. Albania got hit a day ago. 4.4 in Greece. And then over to the west, we have an outbreak, a swarm that's been ongoing next to Gibraltar. This is Morocco on the south side, Spain on the north side, and the earthquake swarm in between. People sending me messages about Iceland and the lava flow there. Really impressive. And they're now calling it a shield volcano. Certain crystals in the rocks indicating that. Pretty interesting that it's going to go on for a long time. And the volume of lava coming out of there is absolutely amazing. It's actually increasing as of yesterday. And the flow is it looks like a bathtub that's overflowing. It's just wild. I can't show you the video. It's copyrighted, but you guys can go over and check it out. Now let's talk about the spread again. Now, here, hold on. Let's recap. This is all a bit much for new people, isn't it? Right? Like, this is a lot. We're getting ready to go up a whole notch, and I would think we're getting ready to go into the mid-range 7 level. I had forecast previously for 6.5. I have to up it by a full magnitude. The whole planet has deep earthquakes down below it, or 3/4 of it, from South America all the way over to Europe. We'll just drop Europe since it was a small quake, and we'll say deep earthquakes from Afghanistan to Chile. And in between there is where we watch for our big earthquake activity that could go up into the big level. Now, again, I was looking for 6.5s. Those didn't hit. Instead, we get a hammer off of a bunch of new deep earthquakes, which to me is pumping more energy into a spot where I'm already looking. And you can see a big open bald spot here going right across the West Pacific at Papua New Guinea up to Guam. And over to the east, we have a series of smaller earthquakes. And over to the west, we have a series of smaller earthquakes, which are 4s and 5s. I guess I shouldn't call those small. But in between them, the big open silent zone, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands. Over to the west, we have another giant open silent zone, and that's here across Sumatra and Java, Indonesia. We're almost looking at 1,000 miles here of open space. Again, think of that like a bald spot. Or another way to look at it is think of that like the valley of the wave. And this is the incoming wave that should fill it in. Let me hit play. And as the next wave comes in and hammers up, I think at the hammer up point is where the earthquake happens. But it could be anywhere along the wave, either at the bottom or the top or anywhere along it. But I would think at the height of the wave, when the stress of the wave, if you will, of the VLF that's passing through the plate. And let me show it to you this way. Here. Here's the red line from the USGS plate boundary map. That we would look right in between here, and we would look right over here. These two spots. So both should get hit. It shouldn't just be one location. This is the spreading wave. So if we're going to look for sevens to come rolling in, we would warn Papua New Guinea and Indonesia. I would think the bigger earthquake would strike at the middle point in between our sets of deep quakes. But we have to determine our sets of deep quakes by the whole planet here, not in this localized area. Well, hey, I'm calling a 4,000-mile area across localized, guys. From Fiji, actually, that's more than 4,000. Here's the United States' perspective, and look at the distance here. It's like 2.5, 3 United States across that's moving just with these sets of deep quakes. So to find our real halfway point between all of it, look, I would say it would put us somewhere right down in here in Indonesia, just to the west, and that makes this bald spot here the other spot that I'm dramatically concerned about, which is Java, Sumatra, Indonesia. After that, or around the same time, we should see earthquake activity of significant size, but not huge, still large, spread up to the north and strike here on the coast of Japan, in between our two sets of earthquakes. Now, this is the most famous earthquake zone on the planet. Look where the sets of rings overlap, guys. Fukushima. Of all the places. Coast of Honshu, northeast Japan, northeast of Tokyo, and we would watch there for at least 6.0, and possibly going up from there, but I will put it at 6 right now, one full step up from what we would look for normally. And normally I'd look for a 5 to strike in between these two. We have two sets of 4s. I would look for a new 5, something bigger than the 4s, to strike in the middle, but we have to add a whole bunch of energy into this. Speaking of adding a whole bunch of energy, let me just add a whole bunch of energy into this broadcast. Aziz! Aziz! Oh, man, you got your prawns off the bobby. Look, we got a new earthquake down in the east-southeast. Now, I had warned Kangaroo Island and Adelaide, but I'll take Tasmania and the Dutch Synths logo and my secret underwater base that I've got down there. But seriously now, we got Perth that's already been hit. We've now been moving down to the east-southeast. The only thing left to go is from here at Uluru, out in the middle of the plate, down to Adelaide at Kangaroo Island. But I just wanted to show you, again, now it's 2.6, it's the same size that struck over at Perth. And what did we come rolling in with to begin with? 4.5. So 2 magnitudes worth of energy was absorbed by the plate. Look, there's going to be at least a 3 striking in the middle here, going from Kangaroo up to Uluru. Okay? Again, I just had to brighten things up there a little bit with my Aussie people. Now, guys, hey, look, we got to talk about this one. Gotta talk about this one. Now, can I cue up the X-Files music? I don't know, not Twilight Zone. This isn't paranormal. This is more like government. Let's go and put this in. The Russians. Нет. Здравствуйте, как вы позовите? Меня зовут Mikhail Leonid Dachins, a.k.a. I took Russian in high school. It's all I know how to say. Other than Ochin Harasha, which I think means very good. Oh yeah, Tavarish, it means friend. Okay. So here we are. Look where we are. We're in beautiful Russia. But we're on the north side of this. This is an interior craton. Now, I mentioned something about the government, didn't I? Yeah, well, let's zoom in and see if we can even see anything up here. I doubt we will. Where's the big radar up here? Dang, where's Jim Lee and Climate Viewer when you need it? Jim, bring back the Google Earth place marks. Damn it, take them off your website. Put them back on Google Earth. There's a guy named Jim Lee who did a lot of hard work assembling Google Earth place marks of all the government-known radar locations, Russian, US, European, everybody, Chinese, and he had them on place marks, but then I don't know what happened to Google, whatever. It was tremendously valuable because it would show us the radar locations that I could find. Let me just put it this way. Right up in here, this spot from basically here all the way over, major Russian missile defense radar stations, but finding them is like finding a needle in the haystack. They're not exactly huge sites. They're little pads that are in the ground that don't look like anything unless you look really close. maybe right along the coast somewhere. I'm not saying that that's what's here, but it's close enough. The submarines and all of this, the Olenyok Gulf. I bet we could just look this up and find info. This is the spot that they said melted. You guys remember that? Like a year ago, it was in the news that this whole thing melted in the middle of winter. And of course, those of us who are paying attention to radar and high-powered microwaves, we understand what that could mean, that if the area around in the water is melting and they can't explain why, but it's just around there, that it could be due to the high-powered microwaves that the Russians would be using to do something. Again, I just have to bring that up. It's so close. All right in there. I don't have anything on Google Earth, but then again, they would come in and blur it out at the request of the Russian government to get access for Google inside of Russia or something. Okay, now let's carry on. Enough sarcasm. Central America, South America. Well, here, let's take a look over in Eastern Caribbean first. Venezuela was hit 5.0. Also, Puerto Rico got hit with a swarm going up into the 3 range and 4.0 range, striking just to the east of the island as expected. So you can check that off the list. The only spot that did not get hit, strikeout for me now at this. It's been 7 days, actually 8 days. So it expired yesterday. Do you see where the rings overlap here between our 5 down in Venezuela and our 4 up here east of Puerto Rico? I had a warning for a 5 going there. But that's where La Soufriere volcano was erupting. And, well, so far nothing's hit, but let me show it to you over on the plate boundary. Even if something hits now, I still won't count it as a hit on my earthquake forecasting. Trying to get it down to a week. If it takes more than 8 days on a 5, I don't know. It's probably not going to hit. But where's it going to go? Well, if it's not going to hit in the middle, that means there's still energy trapped between the two. Should escape out over to the east and wait just a second. Isn't that what already happened earlier this week? That maybe I just didn't take it into account. Oh, wait, where is it? That was last week? Okay, my bad. Okay, so last week, Ascension Island got hit by the previous round that came out. That's, okay, that makes sense. That's when I issued the warning for this here in the Eastern Caribbean. There's still the off possibility that one of our 2 X's would be hit. I still won't count it as a hit on my forecast, but the energy is still trapped between the two. And it will flow out over to the east, but I would expect a break in between the two. But I'm still just getting my own principles down, I guess. Hey, I'm a one-man operation doing something everybody said was impossible. Speaking of people saying stuff that's impossible, look at that. First of all, we're looking at 2.0 and greater, so here I can turn this down. Here's 0.0 and greater earthquakes going across North America. Do you notice anything about the earthquakes and in comparison to the North American craton diagram? Well, there's probably so many numbers on the screen that it's probably confusing people, so let's turn off the numbers and turn down the rings a little. There we go. Now you should be able to see it and be able to compare it a little bit better. It's a pretty good rough outline of the craton, especially going down through Texas, back up the East Coast, that we're on the edge of the craton going up the East Coast. Now, out in the West, let me zoom in on it. There we go. And I'll turn the craton diagram back on now. There we go. So now you can see it coming out of Montana. It's a perfect match. And it points like an arrow down into Yellowstone and focuses in on Yellowstone. Then, further down to the east-southeast, we go over into Utah. We don't have a lick of activity across all of Colorado, and we pick back up right at the oil pumping operations down in Texas where all the drill points are. And remember the principle I told you about fracturing in the rock and a perforation? That Mother Nature follows those perforations in the plate boundaries, and it also follows perforations across the plates when it absorbs the energy from the red lines that I showed you earlier. The red lines. The plate boundaries. And look what's on the west coast of the United States, There's the plate boundary for the Pacific, and it goes right up into the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. These jagged edges belong to the Pacific. And all the motion coming in from here goes right down into and gets locked up and loaded into these jagged edges. It's very smooth flow like a river. There's only a few kinks in the river or a few steep curves, sharp curves in the river, and that's where the big earthquakes strike. Coast of Japan, right there, going up to Kamchatka, going down here, down into Philippines, going down here into Indonesia, going to cross over into Indonesia, where they meet up and break apart. That's where the big earthquakes strike, usually, where the energy gets locked. Now, as I'm talking here, a new quake has just struck in Northern California. We have to get into this because Northern California has started to move in the last day. Now, I warned 7 days ago, or 8 days ago, for California to be on watch in the Bay Area going up to Napa Valley for 5.0 activity. And what hit? Well, that's up for debate, isn't it? I guess it sure is. Well, let's take a look. 3.9, 4.0. A 4 hit. That's what it was, and it was a 4 for a good part of the day. Also, another 3.4 hit, and a swarm outbreak took place. Again, right next to Clear Lake Volcano. Now, at this point, I need to turn on the last 24 hours worth of earthquakes. This is the 0.0 and greater feed from the USGS for the last day. Southern California has been hit, and Northern California has been hit. Southern California was hit by the exact expected magnitude that we forecast for. Northern California has been hit by 1 magnitude under. Again, what did I warn for? 4.9? And a 3.9 hit, right? I adjusted the warning to 4.9 to joke around a little bit, but I really did adjust it in the Bay Area. Actually, Napa Valley to the Bay Area. I warned from the middle of the Bay Area up into Napa Valley for a 4.9. And then the 3.9 and a swarm hits. So that's the earthquake we are looking for. But the third area has not been hit at all by any significant sized activity, and that's here at the California-Nevada border going down to Ridgecrest. California-Nevada border, right here, Ubehebe craters, and here, down to the south where this little stack of quakes is in the last day, that's Ridgecrest. That's the third and final area that needs to get hit by something 4.0 range or greater. I warned for 4.9. What we got up here? 1 magnitude, maybe 0.9 under. Again, we're right at a 4 level, and I warned for a 4.9 up here. And Napa Valley is just south. Let me show you where the earthquake swarm is in California and show you how far off we are in the warning. For Northern California, it got down to the last day, 7 days. And really, it was last night, so I don't know. Is that a... Wow, look at the hotspots. They shifted, but we'll get into that in a second. Here's where the earthquake swarm is, and we have hotspots there as well. The computer's filtering those out, though. The weather satellite is picking up something, and it filters it out. It doesn't know what to make of it. It's an electrical heat of some kind being picked up. And again, the weather satellite's picking it up. But look what's here. All of these turbines that are connected to these pipelines. And the pipelines go out to these drill points. And the drill points go down a few hundred to a few thousand feet, like here. And they get heat to generate steam to turn those turbines. And we have hotspots right next to it, please. And we're on the side of Clear Lake Volcanic Field, and Clear Lake Volcanic Field is on the side of the big red line, which is the plate boundary again. The Pacific plate boundary that's in big time motion right now. So that, where the red dot is, right now on the most recent earthquake that just struck here on the USGS map, is the spot where our new outbreak's taking place. So I want to measure and just see how far off I am, because, you know, there's going to be people who are blah, 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 blah. Let's just measure from the geothermal down to Napa Valley. I just grab it from right here in the middle of it all. Actually, that's even north of there by a couple miles. Well, here's the town of Napa, 40 miles. I'm off by 42 miles. So that's definitely acceptable earthquake forecast-wise. I'm trying to get it within 200 miles. So there we are. We are 40 miles off, and we're about a magnitude. So that's good. There's Northern California getting hit as we would expect. So the only place left to move, but the warning is now expired. We are on day 8 of a 7-day watch. So this one hit last night going into this morning, the swarm outbreak today, and then now 1 miss out of 3. So 2 areas got hit out of 3. We'll give it another day. But again, if we get beyond my 7-day, I don't count it in my little checkbook. But, you know, who cares about my freaking checkbook? It's just, is it going to be there, or is it going to be down to the east-southeast ever so slight? So if we go to the east-southeast ever so slight, we get down to Ridgecrest, which is where I've extended the warning to in the past 2 days. And that's this line of quakes right here, where it's real small right now. There's next to nothing. As a matter of fact, in the last 12 hours, here's what's hit. 1 earthquake. So it's gone quiet at Ridgecrest. And I don't like to see quiet at the spot that just got the biggest earthquake in 20 years for California last year. So the spot we have warned, we'll keep it open, but the warning is technically expired as of last night. Now let's go look these up. Let's start up to the north. Again, this is 24 hours worth of earthquake activity. We're going to start up in Washington. Then we'll go through Oregon, then into Idaho and Northern California. But before we go into any of those, let's go over and check the wonderful Pacific Northwest Seismic Network's website. Go see their tremors. See how many tremors are reported for today, the 13th, and they do have today's reported. We have 89 tremors reported today. Now, these little red dots signify vibrations as the plate shifts. Now, they do assign magnitudes to them, but I don't think of them like cracks in the plate, like a regular earthquake, where a fault would break. Okay, I think of these more like vibrations as a plate shifts in a pocket across 10 or 20 miles, and it's all moving down below at an angle. So these red dots, you have to imagine, nestled down inside of the plate. They're not up at the surface. And if they are at the surface, that's surface deformation of some kind that's happening. But I think these are happening more down into the crust a little bit. And again, they're spread out across southwest Oregon and northwest California. The spots where they're occurring correspond with spots out in the ocean. Here's the Juan de Fuca fracture zone, and it's like a giant arrow pointing into the northernmost point that's shifting. Now, you'll notice the rest of the red dots go right down along, parallel to this arm of the Juan de Fuca that meets into the Mendocino Ridge and Gorda Escarpment. And you'll notice it makes a bend and goes down into California here. That's called the San Andreas. Here's what I'm talking about. The arrow pointing in, and we have a bunch of red dots in there on the tremor map. And then down here, right where it comes in, well, lo and behold, that's where the other set of tremors are. So we're shifting on the southern arm of the Juan de Fuca. Now, something else happened out here within the last week or so. 2 5.9 earthquakes struck out here, and a 13-mile-long fracture. 2 5.9s, 30 minutes apart, 13 miles apart. One up above, one down below. First the one up above, then the one down below. And I imagine it breaking in a slope going down underneath the plate. And so we get 2 5.9s and a 13-mile-long breakout here. And then the next day, Southern California breaks all the way down here at Salton Sea. So first it broke up here, then it moved down here. Now on this day number 7, we move in the middle, basically. Do you follow me on that? That the middle principle applies on this wave that spreads out across California, and think of it like this. Northern California, Southern California. First this one, 2 5.9s break out off the coast of Oregon. Then the next day, down in Southern California, Salton Sea breaks, and we're waiting for the middle one to come up and rise up and hit. And it's not traveling at the speed of light. It's taking a couple days for this to happen. Saturate an area, come up underneath it, and then boom, the new earthquake strikes, and that wave is spreading along this red line. But it doesn't just stop there. It gets absorbed by the plate and taken across the craton. And that's why I use the craton diagram a lot, because the flow of the tank is pretty steady. Takes place like that every week, goes across over to the East Coast, which we'll get into in a few minutes as well. So like I said, we're going to go look up the quakes, but first we had to look up the tremors to see what's going on, see what's moving today. And again, we know Southwest Oregon, Northern California is shifting. But what about the quakes up to the north, eh? Let's go take a look. Go see what's going on up in Washington. Ashford, Washington is how I'm told to pronounce it. Washing is something you do. I don't know what washing is. I know what washing is. There we are. We are at Mount Rainier. And there's Mount Rainier, the most famous stratovolcano in the northwest United States. And you can see it from downtown Seattle. And that's where the 2 small quakes are happening. Both right down below the crater, basically. One directly below the crater and the other right at the foot of the volcano. 2 of the same size quakes does not mean eruption. It's a sign of a little bit of movement. Everybody was asking me about the swarm that happened down here at this place called Government Camp, Oregon. Government Camp, you mean Mount Hood stratovolcano? Government Camp is at the base of Mount Hood. Let's show you where the swarm broke out. Oh, wait. Hold on. Now, just everybody. Now, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it goes into this. But it has to, because in science, you follow your nose, you follow what it is, you correct or do what you got to do to figure out what's going on. We had a swarm outbreak here at Mount Hood. Do you see all these red dots on here? I'm going to click on one, and you're going to see the computer is filtering it out. It's saying 64,000 degrees Kelvin. It's filtering it out. It says it's a mistake reading of a heat signature here. Across 50 miles going to Mount Hood, where we just had the earthquake swarm. Now, there's something here, aside from the volcano, that I think we need to look at. These high-voltage power lines, the transmission lines. Now, this isn't the kind that brings power to your house. I mean, overall it does, but this is the kind that brings power to a city. And you'll see there's like 5 sets of them here, or at least 4 sets of them there. Now, these power lines are on this side too. And we see over and over and over again these hotspots spread across areas where there are high voltage power lines. But not just the power lines, the power generation stations themselves. Solar farms, wind farms, nuclear power plant, geothermal. Okay, I'm already showed you the geothermal electrical locations. But the hotspots showing up next to them. The computer filters them out, says it's not a fire. Happens at a time where the plate gets saturated with seismic energy, and these hotspots show up as a sign of an electrical discharge going through the plate. Now, I found studies that support this idea. They're over on my YouTube community page. You're welcome to go check them out. That rock under stress releases an electrical discharge before an earthquake takes place. Huge amount, too, not just a little bit of electricity, massive megajoules of energy. Okay, so we have a spread of hotspots, somewhat symmetrical spread too, in between or parallel to, I would say connecting between, the 2 power lines, and we have the river and we have a volcano next to it, which I think is already predisposed to be releasing this electrical energy that's coming up out of the plate. Now let's take a look further down to the south. The red dots, again, all these red dots here, are the hotspot signatures, and you'll see they're along the coast of Oregon. Now wait, doesn't that match pretty much where our shifting is taking place? Now look what's spreading out to the east by southeast from there across all of central Nevada. All of central Nevada covered in hotspots, and it's not hotspots from the weather. The computer's filtering out. They're fire signatures that the computer's filtering out. But you see it, it's transferred. We see this transfer across areas. Clusters of these hotspots transfer and then drop off, usually after they move out. We see an earthquake break out in the area or on the edge of where they are. I think the hotspots are, as the energy is passing through an area, it drops off the hotspots. And then where it's either coming from or going to is where the earthquake strikes. I'm still trying to figure it out. This is new satellite launched in the past few years. They didn't used to have this. We can see this now all real time. And they tried to say it was farmers burning their fields. That was their explanation for, oh yeah, first they accused me of faking these hotspots because they didn't know where to download the place marks. And then after they realized they could get them, they said, oh, it must just be farmers burning their fields, Dutch. Just ignore it. And when I didn't, they wrote a mainstream news article about me from Vice Media trying to deny the hotspots and using a professional, a professor from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network and University of Southern California now. And they tried to debunk the hotspots and said only I could see them in the article from Vice Media last year when they wrote it, or 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, they're trying to deny the hotspots. They launched the new weather satellite. It starts showing more hotspots, and this time you can really see them, and we're documenting them, and they're matching where the earthquakes are taking place and where the plate is shifting. So what does it mean? It means that the North American plate is building tension out off the coast, where the Juan de Fuca is, and then it transfers it into North America down following these thick red lines that I've been showing you the whole update here. And along the way, it drops off the earthquakes in this standing wave that spreads out across thousands of miles. And we get earthquakes hundreds of miles apart across the 1,000-mile wavelength, thousands of miles wavelength overall, that every few hundred miles, or a few thousand in some cases, we're getting the same size quakes dropped off. Hence, we get 2 5.9s off the coast of the Northwest, down to the south, going all the way down across that weird uneven bend of the plate in this map here, that we get 2 5.9s up here. A day later, we get a 5.3 and swarm down here. That's not that big of a difference. To go across that distance, think of it like the wave tank. You get a push that comes in on this side, and by the time it gets down here and starts to come back, it's down to a 5.3. Two 5.9s in, 5.3 down here reflects back. And then in the middle, it just takes place here. And I'm 40 miles off. And 1 magnitude off, which means that there's still trapped energy in between the two, which should strike with a new earthquake. Hence, the wave will travel now and strike here in between the two sets of 4s, which puts Lompoc, Southern Valley of California, Santa Cruz Island, North LA, Ventura, right in here. Fraser Park puts this middle point between these two sets of 4s as the new spot to get hit. And lo and behold, who's on the other side? The spot where I've got the warning going, the 4.9. So am I going to adjust the area along the coast? No, that's the middle point, all the way across. So if the middle point is here along the coast between these two 4s, we also have to incorporate, and let me show you so you can understand this. If the middle point is right here, look what goes up to it. The Garlock Fault. It goes right over to China Lake, where we have the 4.9 warning, the final spot to get hit from Ubehebe Craters down to there. So this spot has been hit. This spot has been hit. The new third halfway point should be hit as well. But we're beyond the 7-day time period, so damn it. Can't win them all. But hey, if I get up to bat and there's 3 home runs to be hit, and I hit 2 and strike once, okay, well, there we go. But you guys are able to do this. It's not like baseball. It's not like luck. This is something that I've already published the how-to on. If you want to know how to forecast earthquakes, simply put, I've put an hour-long video out explaining step-by-step directions how to forecast an earthquake by DutchSense. You're welcome to repeat the method and put it to the test, and you will be able to forecast earthquakes yourself down to a few hundred-mile area, 500, 200, somewhere in that range, maybe less, down to 40 like we're getting here. Maybe less, even more. Sometimes we get it right down to the point. And you'll be able to do it regularly. That this is like forecasting the difference between, it's kind of like tides mixed with weather or hurricanes. That you can know a region that's being saturated first, and then you can know the time frame within 24 hours, and you can see the saturation start to take place, and then you can find your halfway points between your current sets of quakes. How hard is it to find the halfway point between these two waves? This wave and this wave at the end. Where's the halfway point? Oh, wait, there's a wave right there in the middle that tells me where the halfway point is. And that's the same principle. That's the same thing that's going on across the entire planet. How do they miss it? Well, when you put blinders on purpose, you're going to miss everything, aren't you? When you're intentionally covering your eyes, you're not going to see very much, are you? And if you put something in your ears, you're certainly not going to hear it. And that's exactly what they did, too. Now let's get into it. A new 3 is struck up to the north. We're swarming out now in Northern California. 3.9, 3.0. And another 2. So big time swarming going on in Northern California. The plate broke last week. 7 days ago, basically, 2 5.9s struck here off the west coast. 13-mile long fracture. 13 miles has to compensate all the way down. Think of it that way. That the 13-mile that broke up here, you gotta compensate for it down through California and over across the Craton. And that gets me into the rest of the quakes. Utah. Imagine my shock when all my viewers in Utah start contacting me about a bunch of earthquakes that are striking across Utah. But you don't see them here today. They were actually yesterday. So let me just quickly open them up. The oil pumping operations in Utah plus the volcanoes in South Utah both combined got hit a day and a half ago. Right there in these pinkish colored earthquakes. Up here, oil pumping operations going up to 3.6. Down here, Markagunt Plateau volcanic field. You'll see, if you were to follow this in a line down here, and you were to follow this in a line over to here, they would come together in an arrow over here. And that's exactly what we have. And then down here, the combined total of the flow going down to the south across the Craton, Southwest Texas gets hit by the same size that struck up in Utah. And it's 3.3 and a bunch of 2s and 1s. Take it together. Oh, 3.3 and a 3.4. If you add those together, it equals 3.5. And then take all the 2s and 1s and add them together, we're at 3.6. Why does that matter? Because the 3.6 came in. 3.6 up here in Utah from the day before. Flow a flow. But it's not that the 3.6 up in Utah caused somehow a 3.6 thousand miles away down in Texas. It's that this standing wave is spreading out, following the craton like it's a waveguide in a microwave. Do you understand how a microwave works? Oh, God. Oh, of course. Nobody understands the microwave works. Okay, on the inside of a microwave, you put electric into this thing called a magnetron, and then out of it comes microwaves. But the microwaves come out of this little thing, and it goes down a tube that's made of metal. It's called a waveguide. And it guides it to the middle of your microwave, usually, where it comes and then reflects down onto your food, right? Okay, so the waveguide guides the wave, once it's emitted from the magnetron, inside of your microwave cavity, the cavity that emits the microwave. Anyway, so we get over here, and the same thing kind of is happening, that the plate boundaries, the red lines, and the craton edges are acting like waveguides in a microwave, but we're not talking about microwaves. We're talking about VLF, waveguides for VLF. If you can even imagine such a thing? There is no such thing as a waveguide for VLF, at least not yet, unless it's made by Tartarian giants from the mud flood era, which we could talk about out in California at some other time. The Garlock Fault. What are you talking about, Dutch? Anyway, let's get into it. Let's go down into Southern California. Speaking of the Garlock, speaking of Southern California, Ridgecrest is yet to be hit. I would like to quickly just go look up the earthquakes down in Southern California just to see if anything new is developed in the LA basin. We were right next to Aliso Canyon a day ago. What's gone on since then? We've transferred down to the east-southeast. That's good, sort of, that it's transferred out of North LA by Aliso Canyon. But our new warned area is Ridgecrest right up here, the middle point. And again, there'll be people who fault me if it strikes anywhere down here near Frazier Park, and I've warned Ridgecrest. I'm trying to get it down to 200 miles or less, just so everybody knows. So 200 miles takes us right down here to Frazier Park, basically. And that puts us right next to Ventura and all the oil pumping operations going out to the offshore platforms that are down here off the coast. Let me show them to you. Here are our offshore platforms, oil and gas. And then we go right over here to Ventura. And this is Dula, Faria, and Ventura. And these are all oil pumping operations here. Oil and gas. Mainly oil. But the Garlock goes this way and connects up all the way. So, oh, look, we've got a hotspot right out there. Right in the middle of... No way, we've got another one out here next to Opal Mountain and unnamed, got a fire. We've got a hotspot where the earthquake was yesterday, guys. And it's being filtered out. It's right there. There was an earthquake there yesterday that I covered in a live update over on my Twitch channel. Now there's a hotspot there. Right in the middle of the Tartarian Star Fort. You guys are all curious about that now. I know. I found it. I'm standing by it. It is. Okay, so what do we have going on down to the south? Well, we've got a series of hotspots down here. Let's go see what's there. Looks like we actually have old subdivision roads. No, they're new subdivision roads. New houses out there. Well, I wonder what's going on in there. Is that a real fire? Yeah. Wait. 499 Kelvin? That's like 500 degrees. That's a low-grade heat. Fires go up into the upper hundreds to low thousands. Computer's filtering out some of these, saying they're not fire. But one of them, it says it is. It matters. The reason I'm even obsessing at all over these hotspots is that earthquake activity accompanies these hotspots. Within usually a short period of time, it's not like weeks even, it's usually days. So it's like the precursor signature to something getting ready to happen. And they happen all throughout the winter, so people can't tell me that it's fire season. They happened all throughout the rainy season, throughout the fire season, throughout last year. People tried to say it was farmers burning their fields at the end of the year last year, you remember. Now we have a new line of hotspots that's been detected coming out from Eureka, making a diagonal line going into Fortuna and Scotia. Those are all recently detected in the last few hours. Also updated around the Bay Area a series of hotspots, going around over into the valley of North Sacramento or South Sacramento. This is getting to be concerning, the updated hotspot list. We have confirmed fires over in Arizona, which we don't have to spend too much time on talking about those. So let's recap for everyone. We've got ourselves a little bit of a situation going on. The deep earthquakes, the sign of some big earthquake activity coming in the West Pacific, and we are on the tail end of receiving that. We're the last to get it. Everybody else usually gets a serving before us. Let me show you. Starting over here with our deep earthquakes. Spreading out over to the west first. We go out over into Asia. They're the first to receive the brunt of the force coming out of the West Pacific. Goes up and flows up into Japan, and we all know about Japan getting hit all the time. Well, it also flows over and goes across the Indian Ocean, hence Africa, hence the Gulf of Aden, hence the Mideast. Same time it's flowing out that way, look at the arrows. It follows the arrows to the north side and south side of South America. And in the middle of it all, that fulcrum point in the middle, hammering off underneath. The way I think of this is like a train coming across a bridge. It comes across and it travels across the fracture zones that connect between where we're hammering up underneath over here on the western side. And it follows the fracture zones, which you can see are pretty much east and west facing, slightly northeast. And you follow the fracture zones over and it follows it path of least resistance, just like it's in a wave tank. Drops off the same sized earthquakes, but when that wave arrives over on the eastern side, it gets over to a wall. It's coming across the Pacific. It's coming across from over here, and look what it hits. When it hits the wall, it spreads out along it, and then finds the cracks in it and goes through. So it comes across, hits the wall, goes up to the north, down to the south. The middle, underneath, it's trying to undermine. It's trying to go underneath. But it doesn't. It can't, or it's too deep, and it gets reflected around or deflected around. And we get the same sized earthquakes down here at the tip of the South Sandwich Islands, 5.0, all the way down here at the tip. We got the shorter one up to the north. So sorry. I can't help it. That's from the USGS. Go figure, right? But it comes across and it spreads out around to the north and it goes down around to the south. And we get the same sized earthquakes that drop off. You're always going to remember this now, aren't you? That we get the same sized earthquakes. I mean, do you think it's a coincidence that we get a 5 on the north side and a 5 on the south side? It's going around. It's breaking around the plate like a rock in a river. And it's going to try to recombine out here on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. So these two 5s are just a sign of the train coming across the bridge. When it hit the wall, it spread around, tried to go underneath, and now it's going to pop back out on the other side or try to equalize on the opposite side, which takes us out onto the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. We go out here again, right out here in the middle. That's where I was talking about Ascension Island, right here. Does it all make sense now? Okay, for new people, I would expect you probably by update number 100 to get it. Can I get an amen to that in the chat room? All right, speaking of the chat room, let's get that turned on. Let's go say hi to everybody over on Twitch. These are the real movers and shakers of the seismic world, no pun intended. And I really didn't mean to make that joke, but you are the movers and shakers of the seismic world. You're the ones who monitor, and you're the ones who keep updated all day and all night long. I even get my information from you guys sometimes. A lot of times, we get the information in the Twitch live chat room before it comes in from any official agency. Either the spectros are being monitored, individual stations are being monitored. A lot of people monitor the PNSN live sites in the Northwest. So that info gets to the chat room sometimes 15, 20, 30 minutes before it gets reported, and you get it on your app or it's on the USGS website. I am not joking. And if there's any corrections or any misquakes, misquakes are mistake quakes, mistake quakes or anything like that, we cover that too. We're all on top of it. And to top it all off, the people are just nice. You know, again, we got some rules over there on the chat room on Twitch that we don't have on YouTube because YouTube is just such a jungle. Everybody on YouTube, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, word up. It is 10:49 p.m. Central Time. Let's just again check in with the chat, see if anybody has any new information to put in. People are talking about something being unconfirmed, but that may be just something that I'm talking about here. It wouldn't be the first time that I was talking about something unconfirmed. But yeah, we're all good. You're doing even better, most likely. I would urge everybody, have an earthquake plan. Will you please take the time to think about what you would do if an earthquake strikes? That could just make the difference. If you've thought about it before, where you're going to take shelter. You don't have to go through the drills of actually getting underneath the table or desk. You could just think about it. And then the emergency kit stuff, I would take the time to develop an emergency kit. Take the time to think about what you would do if you're without power for a few days after an earthquake and no water. So a little bit of water. Of course, you can't really carry that around, but you could have a stockpile of that. And then you could have a backpack with the lightweight foods, and so change of clothes, set of shoes, flashlight, batteries, first aid kit, sanitation. Oh, what else? Oh, God. Extra set of keys, extra IDs. Take pictures of all your important documents. Put them on a flash drive. Waterproof flash drive, too. They're cheap. They're like $5 at the store now. Go to the dollar store. Get the cheap disposable batteries, because, you have to switch them out every 6 months anyway. Get the earthquake kit going. That's my recommendation. The other thing you can do is pay attention to where the earthquakes are now and watch the middle points between the current sets of earthquakes that you see now. Watch for the middle points to get hit and watch for it to flow your way if you're along some of these arrows. I'm along the arrows. I'm on the New Madrid seismic zone, just west of St. Louis. Right? Here, let me show you where I am. I've already been doxxed. It's okay. Yeah, the earthquake guy got doxxed. Oh, man, it's a sad world, dude. It's a sad world. Let me just tell you, you don't even know the story. Okay. West of St. Louis, that's where I am, right out here west of the arrow. Now, you see the rings overlap down to the south. You see the rings overlap over in Tennessee. You see the rings overlap on New York, Pennsylvania, going over to Delaware. And you see the rings overlap back down here in Oklahoma many times. Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, and up here on the East Coast, all should be filled in by something larger than what's currently there on both sides. Again, the wave adds up. So if we have a bunch of 2s on one side and a bunch of 2s on the other, I'd look for something just a little bit bigger to strike in between. BB, Arkansas, Greenbrier. Something bigger than what's on both sides. Same for over in Tennessee. What do we have? We have a 2 on one side, some 2s on one side, and a 2.4 on the other. Hey, look, it's the same size. 2.4 and 2.4. Well, we'll look for something slightly bigger in between. That's at the Kentucky-Tennessee border. And really, this is just the craton moving. The whole craton's going to shift. Remember, 13 miles broke over on the West Coast in 30 minutes at the start of the week, out off the coast of Oregon. Is it any wonder the rest of California shifts after that? If you're in California, heads up, guys. Northern California just got hit by a swarm going up to 4.0. I warned for 4.9. I warned for 4.9. Swarm comes in at 3.9. It's a hit. It's a hit. I'm 40 miles off and a magnitude. Now, the only thing that we're looking for now is at the California-Nevada border, Ridgecrest, going up to Ubehebe craters. But if it doesn't hit, so be it. But I'm down to the last day beyond. I'm 1 day beyond the 7-day time period. Mother Nature does not work on a 7-day time period. I set the 7-day time period for ease of human purposes to look out for a week. So if it takes 8 or 9 days, it's a miss for me technically on the forecast, but that would be the Earth. If like tomorrow, for instance, a 4.9 or something in the 4-ish range hits over at the California-Nevada border at this middle point, that's it. I mean, that's the earthquake we're looking for. But again, I just need to extend my forecast periods maybe. No. I'll just keep taking the hits. That's fine. I'd rather have egg on my face than a roof on your head or broken things on the floor. I mean, if you could just do so much as just to take a few things off the shelves or somehow Velcro tape them down or sticky tape down the things on your shelves to stop something breaking and I'm responsible for that, okay, I'll feel good. And if I'm wrong, I'll get back on and beat myself up and we'll figure out why. Science is about figuring out why you're wrong. And in science, you're going to be wrong 10 times more, and that's an underestimate, 10 times more than you're right. It's an honor to me, science. It's an honor to be wrong and figure out why you're wrong. I know everybody else is just trying to get to the top of being right all the time. That seems what a lot of eggheads and people who get into the educational aspect of science. But for me, I'm on the learning end, and to me, it's an honor to be wrong. I've guessed, I've tried to figure out, I've done science method, I've tried blah, 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 and then we figure out in the end what the reason is that I got it wrong or where the energy went. Or then the earthquake hits and I've just been off by a day. And I'm like, okay, then there we go. My stupid time frame that I put on this. Well, there we go. Time now is 10:55 p.m. Central Time on the 13th of June, 2021. It's about time for me to sign off. Much love to everybody. I will stay on tonight. Keep watch. If anything else goes down, somebody's asking in the chat room, is Alaska warned? Oh, man. I didn't even cover... Oh. See, I get talking and I don't cover every area that I should, right? Thank you for reminding me. Alaska, Hawaii. We're not done yet, guys. We have to get into Alaska, Hawaii. So the energy is coming up out of China, or coming up out of Japan, and coming out of the West Pacific going up into China. So we have a spread going into China. You see it here, the equal spread of 4.9 with 4s on either side. What would you do if I told you it's pretty much the same thing going on here from Taiwan into Japan? 4.9 with 4s on either side. And it's spreading up this way. Now we have the warning going here for the coast of Japan for 6.0. Well, the next step on this is the end of the Aleutian Island chain at the pinnacle tip going into Kamchatka, Russia. And let me turn the display capture back on here really quick and show you over here on the USGS map at this steep bend or curve in the plate. So the next halfway point to be hit will be the mouth of the Aleutians, which goes up into Alaska. The second spot to be hit will be right out here where the rings overlap, right at the end of the peninsula that comes out and goes out into the mouth of the Aleutians. So both sides of the Aleutians are going to get hit. Here and here where all the rings overlap. Technically, you'd say this is the halfway point at Kamchatka between the earthquakes coming out of Japan. Let's get them all on there. There we go. So the earthquakes coming out of Japan and the Kuril Islands and the earthquakes over in Alaska, what's the halfway point? You don't just draw a straight line between the two. You go up and around the curve of the bend. And that, again, you see it. That's the halfway point. So the new wave should come up there. And then we get over here and it's a jumbled mess, right? But you can see that all the rings center where they overlap. And that overlaps right here. So where all the rings overlap for this big cluster at the mouth of Alaska, going on to mainland, but right out here in the ocean, is the next spot to watch. If we're watching for a 6 on the coast of Japan, then we have to watch for a 6 up here at Kamchatka and an upper 5 to strike over to the east. So it should go 6-ish on the western side and 5-ish, upper 5 over on the eastern side. We can even further refine it down. We can go over onto mainland Alaska, where all the rings overlapping here. This puts Anchorage just south. Let's see, actually. Hold on. Actually, that puts us pretty much right on Anchorage. Right on Anchorage. So, right on Anchorage is the third spot that's going to get hit, and that should be in the 5 range, low 5. So let's recap. Japan, 6-ish plus. Kamchatka, 6-ish, so low end 6. Upper 5 out here at the peninsula going into Alaska. And then 5, right on. Low end 5. Don't fault me if it comes in at 4.9, right? Right here at Anchorage. And that should all happen in the next several days. Hawaii, there's another one where we got right this past week. Went up into the 4 range. And they said the eruption stopped at Kilauea. Famous last words, man. Famous last words. Never say it stopped within a few months of it happening when they said that the previous one went on for 20 years. Look at this ring of quakes. This is 7 days, but man, you can see it. Let's wait for it to refresh. 7 days worth of quakes, 0.0 and greater, reported from the USGS out of Hawaii. And, oh wait, that's not 7 days. I'm sorry. That's 3 days. There's 7. Even more, right? But even the untrained eye should be able to see it's making somewhat of a ring or an oval shape. We're down along the coast, of course, we're at Pahala, but what's out in the ocean right out here? And what's over here on the east side? And what's here on the north side? Well, I'll show you. I'll show you where they all are. Let's go out to the middle of the big island out in Hawaii. You guys ready for me to come? I'm coming. I'm not leaving. You're going to have to kick me off the island to get me out of there. Dutch versus the volcano. You're going to throw me in. I'll blow out. Okay. So here's Pahala. Let's compare. The cluster of earthquakes down here along the coast, Pahala. The rest of the earthquakes up here, from Kilauea down to Pu'u'o'o. The rest are along the coast. And then you see this big brown splotch up here. Okay, well, that's pretty easy to identify. The big brown splotch is Mauna Loa. And look at the earthquakes. All around the north side and going right up to the top, right below the crater, with the biggest of the bunch being the one in the middle, the 3.1, right below the crater. So a line of quakes going here and then up to the top. But that's just these. Then over to the east, like I said, from Kilauea to Pu'u'o'o and down along the coast, the biggest of the bunch. But let me show it to you this way. From Kilauea to Pu'u'o'o. Here's Pu'u'o'o. And here's Kilauea. And we're just going to draw a line between the two. So let's do that. Center of the crater. Over to the center of the crater. And what's this right here in the middle? Anybody know? First of all, it's 11 miles across. This is the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. You can see it marked here on the screen. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. That's where all the tourists go. But this is also known as the Middle East Rift Zone. And the rift, of course, is lined with volcanoes along it. And let's bring it in at an angle so you can see what we're talking about here. There we are. Here's Mauna Loa. We have earthquakes along the north side of it, coming around. We have a bunch down here at Pahala. And we have a bunch going from Kilauea over to Pu'u'o'o. They're all making a big ring around this. Let me show it to you on Google Earth. From Google Earth to my earthquake program here, Earthquake 3D. You see it. So, what's around this? This is the Middle East Rift Zone that's making this shape on the east side. Let's go over and compare. You could, well, arguably over to Pu'u'o'o. The eastern side of the Middle East Rift Zone. And I know for certain that's what it is. We can get down real close at an angle and see the bulge of it here. And once you get down here to the edge of it, that's where all the lava flows came out over at Pahoa and the lava flows that came out this past year. Over on the side of it or the bottom of it. Think of it like this. This whole thing filled with red, hot, burning magma. And then it breaks on the side. Well, it starts to fill and it gets overpressure. And then it breaks over here down at the bottom on the side and flows out. But this whole thing fills up like a balloon almost. So when this thing fills up like a balloon, guess what? Up at the top of it, we've got Kilauea, the top of the Middle East Rift Zone. But next to it, you see there's something much bigger. That's Mauna Loa. The Middle East Rift Zone is displacing Mauna Loa. Reinflating. How do I know that? Well, 3 point something is striking over here next to it. We get a 3.7 right next to it along the coast, the Middle East Rift Zone now. We get a 3.7 to 4 right here along the coast. We get a smaller earthquake over here on the side. And the other side, look what's there. Look what's out in the ocean. Lo'ihi. The undersea mount, Lo'ihi. And let's compare to the earthquakes. Well, I'll be. That's where the earthquakes go out to. So it's spreading in both directions out from the area that's inflating. It's reinflating. It's got to be. That's what would make a ring around it. Of earthquakes, I mean. Seismic. I told you guys, in the past, I only pay attention to the seismic. So your eye might be drawn to the two fringe quakes on either side, all the way down there and all the way up here. There we go. Now, up here on the north side, this 1.6 is at a place called Hualalai. And it's a I'm probably butchering the way that's pronounced, but Hualalai. Well, let's go look it up. It's an ancient volcanic field most people don't know about. You might go there if you're a tourist maybe, but you're going to go to the other ones. This. There it is. Hualalai. Hualalea probably, or something. I'm from the Midwest United States, the forever curse of not being able to pronounce anything correctly. But we can say it perfectly every time, can't we? All right, so up here, Hualalai, and then down here to the east by southeast. Is it any coincidence that we're going to the other volcanic fields nearby when the Middle East Rift Zone is the thing that's reinflating? So doesn't that mean it's going to erupt again sooner rather than later? Or something's going to happen? I mean, that's what it would mean to me if it's reinflating, that there's going to be either some more seismic or there will eventually be, very close to it, some kind of volcanic event that takes place. I'm not issuing a forecast for that. I told you I'm just going to watch the earthquakes as they happen, and you can all decide along with me if it looks like something's getting ready to happen. Now, where could all this come from? A lot of people wonder, where does it come from? How do you know when it's getting ready to increase? Well, look at the line of undersea mounts and, of course, islands that make up the Hawaiian island chain. Goes back like a letter V. And over here is Tamu Massif, the largest undersea volcano on the planet, I think, or very close to the largest. But you see the undersea mount chain actually goes up to the north and connects all the way up into Kamchatka, Russia, doesn't it? So, the flow comes in from the north. It goes down over. We don't see many earthquakes drop off along here, but when the flow is great, coming in from Japan, going up and across over into Alaska, that it tends to go down over and over into Hawaii. And dead end, now you see there's fracture zones, east and west facing. They're somewhat equally spaced. They go back to, these fracture zones all go back to this undersea mount chain that comes down and makes a crescent shape and goes down across over into South America like a giant letter C. Here, let me back it up. There you go. You could probably see it. Going from up here, down, around, and over like a giant letter C. Well, let's zoom in there. And Hawaii branches off of it. And these fracture zones aid in force going across from west to east. And the pushes come from over here, where all of our deep earthquakes happen. And we get a bunch of deep earthquakes, and within the week, Hawaii's going back through the roof as the energy is flowing up and across. And do you think it's any coincidence that the bald spot that needs to be hit by a significant sized quake is the spot that's currently feeding Hawaii? Wouldn't you just say that maybe the energy's flowing right now, at least, from there down to here, and that it eventually is going to get backed up and break in the middle? That standing wave is going to saturate all the way down to Hawaii, and it's going to bounce back. Oh, by the way, look at the end of the tank here. It bounces back. Do you see that? Bounce back and goes into the other way and feeds into itself, and then bounces off the other end and comes back, and they feed into each other. That bouncing back motion at the end of the tank, well, you could arguably say that Hawaii's kind of sitting out there at the end of its own little tank. Again, when you look at it this way, it's out at the end of the island chain on the fracture zone, and energy comes down and goes across, goes out to it. Obviously, it goes the other way. Hey, do you think it's any coincidence that Tamu Massif, the biggest undersea mount volcano, is over on one side of this thing, and on the other side, almost the exact same distance, is Mauna Loa, the biggest shield volcano on the surface of the planet? Biggest undersea, biggest above sea. Like a yin-yang on both sides of this fracture zone that goes down on either side. I wonder how far apart they are from the fracture zone. Let's see. Let's just measure it from right in the middle over to the east. Let's get it down to the center of Mauna Loa. Why not? Okay, let's just say 920 miles in one direction, right? How far is it in the other? To the center of Tamu Massif, that is. Here's Tamu Massif, the whole thing. You see it, right? And oh my God, it really is. Okay, I just put it to 922 in the other direction, and it puts us to the center of Tamu Massif, which this would be the crater for it here, and it puts us right on the western edge of the crater for Tamu Massif, right down to a few miles. I think I just may have figured out something else in this update. A new discovery of mine, that Tamu Massif and Mauna Loa Again, the biggest undersea and the biggest above sea. Like yin-yang, almost the exact same distance apart on both sides of this yet undiscovered, I guess, undersea mount chain that doesn't just go out to Hawaii. It goes all the way down and makes a crescent shape. That's Google Earth, and here is Earthquake 3D. So let's just look at it. This is the NOAA map, the NOAA undersea topography map. And so we come down, we go over, Hawaii branches off and dead ends, but this thing carries on and goes down over to the southeast. This is the opposite of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, if you will. We call this the Mid-Pacific Ridge. Maybe it does have a name. But I can tell you this, everything east of it has these equal-spaced fracture zones. Do you see that? And they only come through at one spot right here, and that's where our deep earthquakes are hammering in and spreading across. So the deep earthquakes hammer and spread across. Once it gets to this undersea mount chain, it looks like it spreads out and equalizes, or tries to, and that would explain the equal-spaced or somewhat equal-spaced fracture zones all the way up to the east of this. And on the western side, all the rising undersea mounts. You see them all here, millions of them, undersea mounts and islands rising from the push that comes up from, oh, and Tamu Massif, of course. That there's a rising action coming up underneath from over here, and it spreads out across and equalizes where these fracture zones are. Hawaii's right in the middle of it, and that's where the biggest shield volcano is. Can't be a coincidence there. That's a big discovery if somebody else has not discovered that, which I don't know if they have or not. We'll have to go and look, but like a yin-yang on both sides, come on, I've never heard anybody talk about that. That they're the same distance? Come on. That would mean that this is the center fulcrum point, like a two-arm scale that we're spreading on both sides of this. And that would mean energy is coming down from the north, and once it hits here, it spreads out to the west, it spreads out to the east. Do you see it? My God, I'm excited. Anyway, all right. Let's wrap it up now. This is like a long, extended, super friendly update. Much love, guys. You got to see a new discovery here right before your eyes. Maybe it is a new discovery, maybe it isn't, but it's certainly one I've never observed before. So, maybe somebody will want to look into that a little bit. How about the equalizing spread of a standing wave spreading out, causing volcanic activity and seismic activity? That's significant. We'll be back if anything else goes down. Peace out. I'm saving this as a video, and we're uploading it over on YouTube and going to premiere it back for them to watch. People are telling me to check the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center, and I'm not done yet. Okay. Oh my God. Damn. Bagana volcanoes and Langila. Shit. No, I'm sorry. And Luatolo. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. This is significant. Let me just see who else is on the list. Let me read them to you, all right? So, Bagana in Papua New Guinea, Langila in Papua New Guinea, Luatolo in Indonesia, Sabancaya in Peru, Bagana again, Nevados de Chilean in Chile, Luatolo again, Reventador in Ecuador, Karimsky in Russia, 18,000-foot eye blast, Luatolo in Indonesia again, Sumini Zajima in South Japan. But what I'm concerned about is Bagana and Langila. Those are the two new additions. Let me show you where they are. When you see her, you're just going to shit yourself. I have to say the S word because this is significant. Look where the rings overlap. Now, I'm going to prove it to you. Langila volcano. There we go. Langila, Papua New Guinea. The two new eruptions are in the middle of that open silent zone. Here's Langila volcano. Here's the Solomon Islands. There's where the rings overlap. Right there. Now Bagana, let's get Bagana. Bagana probably. B-A-G-A-N-A. Oh, there it is. Bagana, Papua New Guinea. Bagana. 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 There it is. We would say Bagana here in Missouri. I mean, no disrespect. I seriously don't. That's just, seriously, that's how they would say it. Okay, So we're right next to each other, both sides of the Solomon Islands, Solomon Sea. This is the Solomon Sea, our warned area right in the middle. 2 new blasts from volcanoes that have not been on the list in many, many months. Many months. Down to the day in between our sets of deep quakes. I would say seismic in between there too. Get ready. Get ready for it. It's no coincidence that 2 volcanoes that are never on the list are on there today. Come on. Over to the west, Luatolo is where all these rings overlap, right down here. Luatolo volcano. And further over to the west, we had a 40,000 foot high blast over at Semeru volcano over in Java, which is right here in eastern Java, Indonesia. 40,000 foot. So a 40K foot blast there. 2 new volcanoes erupting here that are not normally on the list. We jump over right across here, and this is where Nyiragongo volcano has been erupting over in Africa. So it's a definite increase, definitely across this area in the past few weeks. And in the past day, 2 new volcanoes have now shown up in the middle of our open silent zone. It's just a sign, guys. It's the middle point getting hit. One more time, it's the standing wave. Spreading out across thousands of miles, where we get 5s on either side and then eruption or eruptions in the middle. Where the wave, I would imagine there's some kind of tension wave coming in, some kind of VLF tension, very low frequency tension, pushing in on the underside of the plate and then spreading out across the plate boundaries. This isn't theoretical. This isn't invisible. This is actually something that, well, it is invisible to the human eye, but it is spreading out, and you can see the earthquakes dropped off along the way. Just wait till Dutch starts covering Mars quakes. Somebody put me in touch with Elon. I think we would get along tremendously. I really do. He needs a spokesperson. That's what he needs. I'll do all the speaking for Elon from now on. Thank you very much. Dutch Sense is now it. God help him, man. Send me to Joe Rogan first, right? Okay. It is 11:17 p.m. Central Time on the 13th of June, 2021. It's the future. I'll be back. Peace out.